Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. Last week, our readers from Atwater Steam Elementary School discussed The Carrefour Curse by Dianne K. Salerni. This week, we continue the conversation with our author. Diane, you started out in the classroom. Talk about your journey from teacher to writer.
For a while, I was both. I was writing while I was a full-time teacher and a full-time mom with young kids. And, my husband is the one who really pushed for me to try to get what turned out to be my first published book. Not the first thing I've ever written, but We Hear the Dead was my first published book for a YA audience. And my second book, The Caged Graves, was also for a YA audience. But neither of them were really appropriate for the grade I taught. I taught fifth grade, and the kids really wished that I would write something for them. I started writing what would become The Eighth Day as a YA novel, and my agent pointed out that it would be more appropriate for middle grade. And I realized, of course it would be, because my class had been clamoring for me to please share that one with them. So I rewrote it as middle grade and never looked back. I've been doing middle grade since then. I love writing middle grade. But it came to a point where I was writing a 3-book series. Again, teaching full-time mom, it was too much. And my husband said, maybe it's time for you to retire from teaching and do the author thing full-time. I've only ever wanted to be two things when I grew up. I wanted to be a teacher or an author, and I'm lucky enough to have been both.
Well, what did teaching teach you about writing?
By interacting with the students, I understood what they liked, what they didn't like, what interested them, what did not interest them. I shared books with them that didn't go over. They shared books with me that they wanted me to read. I really felt that I got a sense of, what those kids like to read. And also the kids themselves. I remember adult criticism of something that happened in The Eighth Day is that adults kept saying that when my main character Jax lies about something important, they don't really think he would have done that. It was too important to lie about. And I'm like, have you met kids? I said, they lie. Stop running down the hall. I wasn't. I saw you with my own eyes. And when I brought this up to kids, and their kids would go, oh yeah, I would have lied if I was Jax. So I think I kind of understand a little bit where they're coming from.
So I have this theory that inside all of us, we are a secret age. I mean, no matter how old the world tells us we are, for example, inside me, I think I'm 12. What about you? What age are you inside yourself?
I would say I'm probably a 5th or 6th grader too. I don't write YA anymore, and I sometimes read it, but not as much. I really like reading middle grade books more than YA. Too much angst in the YA.
So talk to me about your writing process. Do you begin with character or plot or whatever?
I am a pantser who is trying to become more of a plotter because I have started too many stories that went nowhere, and I'm getting a little bit tired of that. I generally start with a premise first, and then I figure out the character who's going to be involved in the premise, and then I work on developing the plot. I am terrible at first drafts. I hate them, and forcing myself all the way to the end of a first draft is the hardest thing that I do. Sometimes, as I did with the manuscript for The Carrefour Curse, I got to the end and I said, well, that's a mess. And I closed the file and didn't look back at it until like 3 years. And 3 years later, I watched the Netflix show Lock and Key, which has a big spooky house and magic and secrets. And I thought, I wish I could write something like that. And then I was like, wait a minute, I think I did. So I opened it back up, and it wasn't as big a mess as I remembered. And I love revising. I hate drafting. I love revising. And so revising this manuscript became my 2020 pandemic project. I got a couple of books on writing. Most recently, I picked up Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And as I began to read it, I'm like, this is not telling me anything that I didn't already know, but it's telling me things that I haven't been applying. So, and I looked at it and I started applying it to a half-finished manuscript that I abandoned a couple of years ago. And I immediately began to see the mistakes that I made along the way that probably caused me to abandon it in the first place. And that what I thought was going to be the climax of the novel, where everything wrapped up way too easily, really needed to be the midpoint and a false victory before things went much, much worse. And so it gave me an opportunity to take a look at what I had done and how, and I didn't have to rewrite a lot, but I did need to emphasize some things other than others. Some things needed to come out or happen in a different order. But again, the book didn't teach me anything I hadn't already known. I just wasn't applying it, and I needed a reminder. I think that I was not emphasizing the emotional development of my main character as much as I should. I always think, well, let me get down the events of the story and then I'll work on that later. But if I don't know what her emotional journey is, then I'm not always getting the right events, or I'm not putting the right spin on the events. Like, all right, this happened, but I didn't have her thinking about it in the right way.
Thanks, Diane. We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org. And if you are looking for reading tips for that kid who will not pick up a book, please sign up for our newsletter. Every couple of weeks, we will send you a reading tip from an expert. We have a link in the show notes, or just visit our website, bookclubforkids.org. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.